Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Wanted to get on here and talk about a very sensitive subject for me. My phone's buzzing, sorry. That's also recently become a very sensitive subject for some other people that I know. And I would like to say that maybe this could give other parents peace. Though, to be honest with you, I don't know that that's entirely possible, especially from a stranger. But here goes. If you like what you see, just hit the subscribe button down below, hit the notification bell, and let's jump in. I was 18 and I found out that I was pregnant. And long story short, relationship with this husband was not very great. He was abusive, and there were so many different ways that I could have left, and I should have. And that's one of the things that, one of my biggest regrets in everything. But I was 15 weeks pregnant. I laid down to go to sleep, and something felt weird. It was almost as if I felt like I was about to pee on myself. So I got up, went to the bathroom, and I didn't pee, but there was a gush of fluid. And I was really, really worried, because even though I wasn't sure what was going on at the time, my initial guess was that my water broke. And at 15 weeks, that's just not good. So end up rushing to the emergency room. They did an ultrasound, and my water had broke. And they said that the best outcome was to abort the pregnancy, which was one of the hardest things to hear. And it was just devastating. I mean, that was the first ultrasound that my husband had seen. And here I was, 18 years old, and this is my first baby, and they want me to abort the pregnancy. So they set an appointment up for the next day to talk to the OB, and we get there. The OB brought us into his office. It was myself, my mother, my husband, and told me that there were possibly other options other than aborting the pregnancy. He was a little uncomfortable with it because, to be honest, I don't know why he was so uncomfortable with that. I mean, I guess possibly just a religious thing. I'm not sure. But I immediately, was curious. Yeah, what are the options? What are my options here? So he said that, several things. One of those being set up an appointment to head to Birmingham to see a specialist. And without consulting anybody, I'm like, yeah, that's the only one that, doesn't, kill my baby, and I don't want that. So that's what it was. So we go up to Birmingham. The doctor there said the same thing, kind of just, that there is no amniotic fluid. Sometimes there were small amounts, but it was not enough. So it was basically just a question to her, if this were you or your daughter, kind of what would be your advice for this? And she said the same thing, that, she would or would advise to terminate the pregnancy. But I couldn't. I mean, the baby's heartbeat was strong. The baby was still growing. I couldn't do it. So they wanted me to be on bed rest Christmas of 2005, and to be on bed rest in the hospital. On Christmas, we were able to move that to the day after Christmas. We spent that Christmas with my husband's family. Went into the hospital. It was awful. I mean, my husband was there, but he was also talking to other women, and when I found out, it was this big fight, and then he was only at the hospital sometimes. Would rather not be there than be there. It was awful. So my family would come and take turns and stay. And sorry guys, sitting in my little like office space and trying to get my phone charged. But so anyways, and my cousin was staying with me at the time. And the morning of January 3rd, 2006, and this happened several times where I would start to have contractions, and then they would give me a shot. I can't remember at this point what it was, to stop labor. It did. But I wasn't sure that that's what it was at this point. It wasn't strong contractions. It wasn't painful. I mean, it was just, figured it was just me being uncomfortable. So I jumped in the shower, and while I was in the shower, it got worse. It got to the point where I had to kind of almost sit down. So I knew, like, this is serious. So I get out of the shower, go lay back down, call the nurse and tell them, like, hey, I'm having contractions, like somebody needs to come in. So they come in, the doctor comes in. At this point I was 3 centimeters dilated. And at this point my baby was very small. And so the likelihood of me delivering before being 10 centimeters was extremely high. So they said, call family, this is happening. At this point, my husband had gone back to the base, the Army, but he was a pilot in the Army. And he went back to stay with some friends who were there as well, and which was 2 hours away from where I was. Thankfully, they were able to wait to deliver until he was there. He kind of came in at the last minute. So they delivered him via C-section, and he wasn't crying when he came, but they did make the comment that he was making sounds that he should be making. So they rushed him to the NICU at this point. Finished the C-section, went to the recovery, was there for an hour, got sick, got okay from that, went back to the room. And this being my first major surgery, first C-section, it was really rough. Back and forth to the NICU, my family came down. His family actually lived in the town that we were staying at the hospital in, so excuse me. Woke up the morning of January 5th about somewhere around 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. Just really, really uneasy feeling. Went to the bathroom, laid back down. And about that time, a nurse came in and said that they called from the NICU. They wanted us to come down, that she was grabbing a wheelchair. Now, at this point, I knew something was wrong. I don't know if it was mother's intuition or whatever, but just I could tell something was wrong. They brought the wheelchair in, got in the wheelchair. My husband started to walk me down to the NICU. Couldn't help but to just fall to pieces the whole way there. So we actually get to the NICU room, and there are a few, I'm not sure, 2 or 3 of the nurses who informed us that his heart rate had dropped or excuse me, his oxygen level had dropped too low for too long, and if he were to survive, that there would be significant brain damage. But that they didn't believe that he was going to be able to breathe on his own. So this was the first time that I actually got to hold him. Because before this, he had just been able to be in the little, I don't know what they're called, to be honest with you. And so they have, I mean, he's wires, tubes everywhere. So they hand him to me, kind of lay him on me. And his heart rate, his oxygen level, everything went up. But it still wasn't going to change the outcome. My father-in-law did not hold my son at all. He basically just touched his head and said, okay, well, now what do we do? Which was extremely insensitive. And to this day, I just can't believe someone could be so cruel. Myself, my husband, and my mother-in-law were all crying. We were to pieces. They had called my family, my husband's family. So my family was on their way. I held my son. My husband held him. It was a boy. His name was Aiden. And my mother-in-law held him as well. And then I held him again. They wanted to check and see if he was breathing on his own. So I gave them the permission to turn the machine off for just a moment to see if anything would change. There was a slight change. They turned the machine back on. It changed enough to the point where they knew he was not going to be able to breathe on his own. Turned the machine back on. And we had to make the decision of whether or not to keep the machine going, or to turn the machine off. And we chose not to prolong everything. We chose to turn the machine off. The outcome was the same. There was no changing it. There was no way that anything was going to get any better. I mean, there were a lot of details that they were explaining to us about everything, which was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made in my life. Sorry. So we let him turn the machine off. I was holding him when he left. My family got there. They were able to see him one last time. We decided to have him cremated. We were also splitting up in the hospital. He informed me, he wanted a divorce. He didn't love me in that way, and did not want to be with me, which was a really hard pill to swallow as well, because this was a guy that, I fell in love with, early on. I want to say I met him when I was 16. So, yeah, really, really hard to lose your child and lose your husband, someone that you've loved for, years, and for them to tell you that, they don't love you. It's the worst thing in the world. My world was falling apart. So, flash forward from there, it is now January of 2019, and my son would have been 13 this year, and I wish that there were words that I could say to help other parents get through something like this. there's nothing that anybody can say to change the hurt. You know, you hear, you know, oh, time heals everything, and, you know, you'll get past this, and, you know, but you don't. The grieving, it never stops. The only thing that I can say that might be in the least bit helpful is that it does get easier not to fall apart. You know, when you hear their name, sorry. When you think about the memories, because some parents are only ever just pregnant, some lose, some have miscarriages, some are stillborn, some pass away shortly after birth, some have their children for a little bit of time, some have it for years, but I don't believe that that changes the hurt, the grief. I don't believe that any one is worse than the other. But it does get easier not to fall to pieces when you talk about them, when you hear about them. Like I said, it's been 13 years for me, and sometimes, like now, it's a little hard not to lose it. But I will say that, you know, there are angel moms, angel dads, that I've found out that's what we're referred to as. There are those that came before you. There will be those after you. And the only thing you can do is be there for them. You know, some don't want to remember, but I'm not one of those people. And there are a lot that are not. They want to keep that memory alive. And, you know, it helps them to know that they're not the only one that, you know, remembers the child. They're not the only one that loved the child. If anyone has gone through this, anyone knows anyone that's gone through this, feel free to shoot me a message, comment. I'm not sure if there's any way to message someone other than sending a comment through a video, but yeah, comment down below if you have anything that helped you get through something like this. I mean, I would love to hear anyone's story. I know everyone has one. And just know, I mean, you're not alone. I'm here. If anyone has gone through this, you need someone to talk to, someone to vent to. Please don't hesitate to reach out. I absolutely hope that this helps in some way any other angel parent out there. I did, you know, in 2008 have another son, my rainbow baby. And he is now 10. He'll be 11 this year. And he's given me a run for my money. So there's hope. I will say that. There's definitely hope. And I think this is where I'm going to leave it. It's been a very long video. Sorry about that, you guys. But yeah, just let me know what you guys think, and subscribe if you haven't. Hit the notification bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video, and I will see you guys next time.